Hello, and welcome to week 8 of our No BS Homebuyer Live series. Today, we are going to be talking about what to do and how to build a savings without suffering. So, last week we talked about where your money's actually going and why that matters. So, now we're going to talk about where we're going to put that money and how we're going to save it without, living on rice and beans and, doing all the things that aren't actually very fun. So let's go on and talk a little bit about what savings are and why we don't want to treat it like deprivation. Um, and so let's touch into that a little bit. A lot of people think saving just means cutting everything fun, and again, the rice and beans, or not getting your coffee and not doing anything social with your friends. And that's just not the truth. When you treat savings and saving up like that, your fail rate is so much higher than if you just take it one step at a time, realize what you're saving for, and shift and redirect some of your spending. So we're not here to encourage deprivation, and you have to save a huge percentage of your income in order to be able to buy a house. That's just not the case. And ultimately, I think if you go in with that plan, unless you are just so hardcore, you're going to fail at it anyway. So we want to take a more reasonable approach on savings and saving up for a down payment. So just recognizing our goal is not to eliminate spending. You should still be spending on things that bring you joy. But maybe you can cut back on the things that really don't bring you joy and put it towards your goal of wanting to save a house. And we kind of, again, last week, if you did the call to action, you can kind of see now where you are actually spending your money, and you can align that with your mental thoughts of like, hey, does that actually bring me anything? Is this benefiting me in any way, mentally, physically, emotionally? And if it's not, then cut it out, say bye-bye, no worries, and put it towards your home down payment savings. And recognizing that if owning a home is truly your goal and your priority, your money is going to start reflecting that. And when you actively are taking steps towards that, your money will follow because you're thinking about it and you're bringing that within your realm. So you'll really start to do that. In past episodes or weeks, we have already talked about the myth of needing 20% down. But let's just kind of touch on that really quick in case you haven't heard the previous episodes. You do not necessarily need 20% in savings to buy a house. So if we look at some different programs, which in a future episode, we're going to break down the programs in a lot more depth, but quick overview, FHA loans, you can put as low as 3.5% down. Conventional, you can go as low as 3%. In most cases, it makes sense to do 5% down. And then VA, or if you're a veteran or active duty, or you're buying in a USDA area, which is like outside of city limits in most places, you can go as low as 0% down. And then locally to wherever you are, it's definitely worth looking into like first-time buyer programs or special loan programs, because there are oftentimes options with very low down situations. Like locally, we have one that you just have to have $1,000 into the deal and you can get a loan. So in our state, it's called NIFA, Nebraska Investment Finance Authority. Each state has their own version, so worth checking into that. And then we also locally have something called NeighborWorks, which is another program for buyers to help get them into homes with lower down payments. So the reason I bring that up is people are like, well, I need 20% down to buy a house. No, you really don't. And to be quite frank, most first-time home buyers are definitely not bringing 20% down. What you actually need will depend on your purchase price, the loan type that you choose, or the program that you go through, your comfort level, and then your timeline for saving. So many first-time home buyers, especially that I work with, the total cash needed tends to fall somewhere between like $8,000 and $20,000. And honestly, probably that typically does include closing costs. So you can really do it pretty affordably and save up money pretty quickly if you are focused and have a plan. Uh, so that brings me to building a plan. We really want to build a plan so that way you can have actionable steps to achieve your goals. So, step one would be like picking your target range. What type of house are you wanting to buy? If you're thinking, $200,000 house or a $250,000 house or a $750,000 house, no big deal. You just need to know what numbers you're saving for. So, let's just use 250 because I feel like that's a pretty reasonable first time home buyer range. So if you're expecting to put 3% down, that's going to be $7,500. Or, like I said, in a conventional situation, it typically makes more sense to do 5% down. You're looking at $12,500 to have saved up. And then that is just for the down payment on the actual loan. So you want to buffer in some closing costs. We typically estimate like 2 to 4%, so another 5 to 10,000. So you're looking at like 17.5, 22.5 on the high side, and honestly, I think that's pretty on the high side to have savings for closing costs and the down payment on the actual loan. And then I would also add a little bit of a moving buffer because it is not free to move homes, especially if you're going to be hiring movers. You definitely want to keep that in mind. Most of the first-time home buyers I know call on friends and family or close enough acquaintances that have a truck. But you definitely want to have some extra cash because there are so many little things when you move that you just need, whether that be a broom and cleaning supplies and just, some things from Home Depot. It all adds up. So I would buffer, I would say at minimum $1,000, but realistically more if you're going to be hiring movers. So now that you've looked at that, you should have a real number and not some vague, well, I just don't have enough. I don't have enough saved. I don't know how much I have to save. So now you can throw that excuse out the window and say, hey, I know I need $22,000 saved up before I can buy my $250,000 house. Then I want you to set up a timeline. So if you're really shooting for 6 months out, 12 months out, 2 years out, whatever it is that you're shooting for, you need to kind of have this idea in mind. And actually, it might be a little bit easier to kind of change how you look at it and say, hey, okay, here's what I'm spending. This is my extra income that I can put aside. Maybe you take that number and divide it by divide the total 20,000 that you need to save divided by how much money you can save each month, and then that'll tell you how many months you need or how much time you actually need. But you're just trying to get a timeline here. So if let's say you did the 20,000 and you were going to do that in 1 year, you're looking at $1,667 every month that you need to be putting aside. So if that's not a reasonable number within your budget and planning, then you just need to extend your timeline or find some other means to add additional income. And just because you have to stretch your timeline doesn't mean that's a failure. It's a strategy, it's planning. And if you get, good headwinds in something, or you get a great tax return, you can, cut some of that time off. Or, you get a bonus for your job rather than going and treating yourself. Why don't you just pretend it never happened and put it towards your home down payment fund? There are a lot of things throughout the year that you might not and recognize at the beginning or like take into account that might pop up. Also, ask your family for money instead of gifts for holidays and birthdays and things like that. And tell them it's for a down payment. They tend to be a little bit more generous. Anyway, back to our steps. Now we are on the automation portion of our steps. So not only have you figured out exactly what you need to be saving, how long you need to be saving, what amount for, now you want to just automate it because it works best when it's invisible, easy, and just, again, automated. So my suggestion is always to put it in a high yield savings account. This A high yield savings account will give you a higher return than just a traditional savings account, but it also doesn't have market volatility, like if you put it in the stock market or something like that. So rather than earn 0.5% on your savings account, you can typically earn somewhere between 3 and 5. Um, and those are online. We personally use Ally. We've been really happy with it for our savings. Um, okay, and then in addition to putting it in this savings in the high yield savings account, I would also just automatically transfer out the amount that you need every month. If you get paid twice a month, divide it by 2, and every time you get paid, just automatically transfer it out into your savings bucket. Because if you don't see it there, you don't spend it because it doesn't exist in your mind. So the more you can do to just push it out of your mind as an option and put it towards something specific, you're going to have better luck. And then also rename your savings account, or just make it very clear in your mind what the savings account is for. Call it a home fund, call it a future home, like whatever gets you excited, but also separates it so that way you can see, like, hey, I really am building up my savings toward being able to do a down payment for a purchase. And again, we're just trying to make this as simple and easy, because if you make it a process, there's more steps to fail on or forget, or just bypass, and then that month you didn't do it, and then you forget, and then you don't do it the next month, and it's just a downhill slide. So make it as easy as you can to have the biggest success rate. um, and again, I do it automatically. Get it out of your checking account, because when it hits your checking account, you see it and you think it's yours, but if you don't ever see it, you don't know, and then you're fine. It's little mental tricks. So now I really want to lean in a little bit, because I don't want to restrict you on spending your money. I want to redirect where your money is going. Most people don't need to suffer terribly in order to just save up to buy a house. They just need to redirect some funds that, again, aren't bringing them joy, aren't bringing them value. And like we looked at last week, there probably are some things in your life that you just really have been spending money on that you don't value. So get them out, put them towards your goals, and really make things happen in your life. So some good examples would be reducing your subscriptions. I know we have a ton of subscriptions because, we got to have Disney Plus, we got to have Netflix, we got to have live TV so we can watch football. Reduce your subscriptions. If it's not football season, get rid of that subscription. Like, we cancel YouTube TV when football season's over, because we don't watch live TV outside of that. Or see if you can group subscriptions, like Hulu, Disney Plus, blah, 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 ESPN, whatever. See if you can group them and then cut out some other ones. That's a big one. And I know subscription-based models are super big right now, but if you've got, random ones that you're using for skincare, you're doing a book of the month, you've got all these different ones. Can you cut some out, focus on the ones that you really care about, and double check and make sure you're not paying for ones that you didn't even know you still have? And then other things you could do is one fewer night, one fewer day of the week of eating out. So if you go out to eat 3 days out of the week, cut it down to 2. And on that day, when you stay home instead of go out, transfer the money into your savings and make it feel better. Okay, I still spent the money, but I put it into my home fund savings. And then, like I said earlier, if you get bonuses, tax refunds, any big windfalls of money that you maybe weren't really expecting or weren't really counting on for your budget, put them in the savings account and pretend they don't exist, and that will build up much faster. Go through your house, sell unused items. It's cluttering your house anyway, and you don't want to have to move it into your new house. So get rid of it now and maybe get some money for it. And then any kind of side income, if you can make some meals for people or do some daycare or babysitting, whatever kind of side income, earmark it specifically for your home fund. Or if you're thinking about starting a side business, start by putting it towards your home fund, and then after that you can have a bonus money in your new home. Just any type of things that you're not directly relying upon each month to survive. If you can put it towards your home fund and temporarily build that up versus just spend it extra and increase your lifestyle, you really aren't gonna miss it if it's just in your mind as going towards your home. And I mean, even just like $400 a month, that adds up to $4,800 a year. So like it can make a really big impact. And obviously, the more you can put towards it, the faster you're going to be able to get that down payment ready to buy a home. But just these little things can really make some real progress as long as you're focused and you have a plan. So a little bit on the psychology of savings. We've touched on a couple of things, but motivation fades, but systems win in situations like this. So when you have a goal, one, write it down. That's the first step. I really, really love a visual tracker. Like if I can, color something in and say, hey, I'm doing it. Like I used to love those like thermometers in school when we were doing fundraisers because we could go color it in as we raised money. Um, do that. Make one for yourself. Uh, Set little milestone rewards. Like, okay, I have saved up 25% of my goal. I am going to treat myself to a massage because I have worked really hard for this. Yes, it's going to be $100 or $200 off that month, maybe, or take it out of some other spending and treat yourself. But that little reward will encourage you to continue to get to the bigger rewards. So I would say like every quarter of the way to your goal, throw in a little reward for yourself. Or if you've got a dollar number and it's an easy dollar number, like you're like, I've never saved $2,000 in my life. I want to, you know, I want to go get my nails done, or I want to go have a nice dinner. Please don't book the like 50,000 African safari because that's eliminating the point of this, but little wins to celebrate. And then celebrate halfway through too. So just find your little spots along the way, and that really helps because the motivation of, oh, I can't wait to buy a house, I'm going to do it. You tell all your friends you're going to do it, and then you didn't set up any kind of systems, you don't have any kind of numbers, any ideas of what you're actually doing, and then you never do it. And then, it's like a lot of things we have in life. So build a plan, put a system in place, and you are much more likely to achieve your goal. So your action this week is to pick a realistic purchase price. And it never hurts to talk to a lender ahead of time. Even if you're not ready, they can help coach and guide you. Goodness. They can help coach and guide you on what you need to be doing and how much you actually need to be saving and what kind of loan programs you are qualified for. And especially if you're going to be expecting like a big raise in the near future, there are certain loan programs that have limitations on income and things like that. So it doesn't hurt to talk to a lender ahead of time, even if you're not ready, just to get an idea of setting that realistic range, having a better idea of what your actual down payment would be just based off the programs and costs and whatnot. Side note, highly recommend talking to a lender even early. But for your action this week, pick a realistic price range, find the down payment plus the closing costs, make that your total number that you need to save, set a timeline, open or rename your savings account. Again, recommend high yield savings account, call it the home fund, first time home buyer fund, whatever you need, future home fund. You can get really funny and creative with it, and then it makes it even more fun. And then automate your first transfer. And that is your action item for this week. I have made a document, and of course, I don't think it's going to upload. Let me see if I can try again. But it walks you through doing this, and then it's it's not a very good color in the thing. It's not as pretty as I would like it, but you get what you get. But you can fill in along the way at 25, 50, 75. Oh, here we go. Here it is. So you get to determine your target price range, the down payment percentage, the down payment amount, roughly the closing costs, moving, buffer fund, and then your total savings goal. So in the example we were running early, like 20 grand. And then let's say you got 5,000 saved already. So that means you only have 15,000 that you have to save for. And then you take that remaining amount needed, so the 15,000, however much you can save per month, if it's $400, if it's $1,000, you put that in there, and then you take the remaining divided by your monthly amount you can save. and that's your target. That's how many months it's going to take you, and then you can determine your target date to have this all done by. And then here is the really intense home savings plan. So you fill in as you go, but it also lets you write in your milestone celebrations along the way, just so you can keep track of it easier than just, remembering it. Again, writing down a goal, you're going to have much better luck. So that is all I have for you today. If you want help creating a savings plan based on your specific numbers, timelines, or just, some of this is a little overwhelming for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. That's what I'm here for. I would love to help you get on the right track. And next week, we are going to be diving into paying off debt smartly, because we're going to look at our debt to income and making a payoff loan or a payoff plan. So that way we are strategically positioning ourselves to be better qualified for a loan in the future. So stay tuned next week, but thank you for checking in this week. And I hope this gave you some good info. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I am seeing in the chat that Monarch Money is a great app to track expenses and monitor your overall net worth. I completely agree. My husband and I just recently got started on that, and it has been really fun to see, because you can see all of your accounts all in one. So that's great for tracking spending. And then I believe you can even set goals in it. So love the suggestion of that tool. Thank you. But I will see you guys next week, and let's plan on paying off our debt in a smart way. And thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.